Well, let's look at their friend. This is a few years later. Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon had been conquered. And now there was a new king, a new country. Darius was king. And kings being what they are, he fell for some of the same stuff. Only he didn't originate it. Daniel was one of 3 supervisors, one of 3 administrators for all of well, it wasn't Babylon anymore, but the Babylonian area that was ruled by Darius. And now, King Darius was thinking about making Daniel number 1, and he would be the supervisor, the administrator for everyone. And there was like 120 other sub-administrators below these 3. And when these other administrators started hearing that they were thinking they were going to make Daniel the head of everybody, and all these people were going to be subject to him, they got jealous. So they said, well, we got to find some way to discredit him. We got to find something that he's doing wrong. We got to tell the king that, he's screwing up. And they watched him intently, looking at everything he did. You know what? He was honest. He's not corrupt. All politicians are corrupt. What is wrong with this guy? He wasn't slothful. But all government employees are lazy, overpaid people. What? He's not screwing up? This is impossible. But they looked and looked, trying to find some flaw in what Daniel was doing so they could take it to the king and say, look, you've got to get rid of this guy. And they could find nothing. Finally, it hit them. We have to make a conflict between his loyalty to his God and the laws of this country. That's the only way we can get rid of him. So being the sneaky, underhanded people they were, they plotted out a plan. They said, well, most kings really like it when everybody thinks they're God, right? I bet we can use that to our favor. And we know Daniel, he's not going to go for that. So they get all their 120 leaders and the other 2 administrators. Of course, Daniel is very much left out of this party. And they go to King Darius and said, oh, King Darius, you're the greatest king this country's ever seen. You know what? The problem is not everybody knows how great and wonderful you are. So we think you should make a decree so that everyone knows how wonderful you are. You should make a decree that for 30 days, no one in this entire place should bow down or pray to anyone but you. Wow. Well, yeah, well, I know I'm a pretty good king, but I had no idea you thought that highly of me. Well, okay then. All right, we'll do it. We'll sign this off. And so it becomes law. But you see, in Medo-Persia, they had a different set of rules. When the king signed a decree into law, it was law absolutely. It could not be changed. It was not like American law where we put a law in one day and next day it's in court and 3 days later they repeal it. It doesn't work that way. In under Medo-Persian law, when the king signed it, it was a decree that even the king could not take back. Because see, part of this clause about having to worship the king for 30 days, if they didn't, the penalty was the lion's den. They're going to be thrown into the lion's den. So all these administrators, after they got this law signed, washed their hands, went back to Daniel's house, and they're watching. Because you know what? Daniel had a practice. Every day, 3 times a day, he'd open his window facing Jerusalem, and he would kneel and he'd pray, and he'd ask for God's wisdom and God's direction and commit his life to God. And so all these administrators are going, well, is he going to pray in his closet today, or is he going to do it? Let's find out. So they're over there watching, spying, just around the corner, just enough so they can see. Sure enough, shutters creak open, and as usual, there's Daniel, kneeling and praying. Yeah, wow, that's amazing. But, we don't want to rush this too quick, so, let's wait till evening and see if he does it again. And so they wait, and again he does it. And this time they come back to King Darius, and they can barely contain their glee. They're just so happy. Their faces are grinning. They're just, oh, we're finally going to get rid of this guy. We're finally got it. We're going to get him out. We're going to be next to the king. But of course they didn't want to come across wrong with the king. So they said, King Darius, Your Majesty, we have found somebody who he didn't follow your decree. And we're so sorry to inform you, Your Majesty, that it was one of your trusted servants. It was one of us. One of your administrators. Daniel, he's still praying to his God. He wasn't praying to you. You have to throw him in the den of lions. At that point, the king's face turned ashen white, and he realized he'd been set up. Daniel was his most trusted administrator. He depended on him and come to realize that he was the wisest, smartest, most dependable administrator he had out of all of these guys. And he realized the whole thing was a setup just to get Daniel out of the way. Well, what could he do? Yes, he was king, but by Medo-Persian law, he could not even change his own decree. He waited. He waited until evening because he was trying to find some way to get out of it, to save Daniel. But in the end, in order for him to remain king, he had to abide by his own decree. So the soldiers went, they picked up Daniel, they bound him up, and the king actually comes himself out to the lion's den and watches Daniel being lowered down into the lion's den, and he's wringing his hands. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. May your God please protect you. I hope he can do this. And he goes back to his posh, kingly palace. But tonight, there's no entertainment. There's no singers. There's no dancers. There's no gourmet meals. This is the king pacing back and forth, back and forth. What an idiot. I can't believe I fell for this. Please. I don't know if he prayed or not, but he was just hoping that Daniel's God would deliver him because he's the best man I have. How could this happen? How could I be so stupid? Finally, the sun starts to peek up over the horizon. He runs out. Okay, he's been in there overnight. That's all I have to do. And he gets some, come on, gets a few servants, and they roll away the stone. And, Daniel, are you okay? Don't worry, King. God sent his angels, and they closed the lions' mouths. I'm not hurt at all. Whoa! Wow! Oh, this is so awesome. The king is so happy. He says, well, get her up. Come on up. And being the king like he normally was, he did the same thing Nebuchadnezzar did. If anyone in all my empire says anything against the God of Daniel, he'll be destroyed. And of course, all those other administrators, when he realized he'd been tricked, they ended up in the lion's den. And lest you think that those lions just weren't hungry, they didn't even hit the floor before the lions tore them up. It's only God's grace. Daniel stood on the edge of a cliff, and God said, jump, I'll catch you. Took a leap of faith. The moment when he was being lowered down to the lion's den and they were eyeing him, saliva dripping off their fangs. He had no sword, he had no dagger, he had no protection. It must have looked like the end. But you see, it was a leap of faith. God was on the other side, and just at the right moment, his angels swooped in and saved him.